of the Red, White, and You Show with yours truly, the Military Medium. This episode being brought to you by Trailblazing Communications, tools to take back your life. Well, friends, this episode is a real special one. We have with us today Heather Clark, and she has so much going on. Heather not only is a Navy veteran and a yoga instructor, but in a sense, it's in the name is like TWSTY Yoga, but I'm going to let her describe everything. Heather, welcome to the Red, White, and You Show.
Thank you, Dean, for having me on. Hello, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to meet with us. Now, if you could, Heather, in a synopsis, could you share with us who Heather Clark is?
Well, first and foremost, I would always say I'm a very patriotic American. I was raised in Wyoming, very patriotic place, family with military in it, myself, some other cousins. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. He was a pilot. He was also taken prisoner in POW for 2.5 years. And so he and my grandmother had a lot to do with my raising. And so I, as a child, would go to different events where he would speak, different VFW events that he participated in. And he really just increased my knowledge of what it was to serve our country. And that's something that I always had a desire to do. And so as I got older, I thought about it, and then I ended up actually marrying someone in the Navy. So that was my first introduction into military lifestyle, which I dearly loved. I fell in love with everything about it, the team effort, even on the family and spouses parts, and just the joint mission to have something of a greater purpose than ourselves. And so from there, I decided to look into joining. I had actually looked first at the Marines. I decided to wait a little bit until my kids were older. And then when 9/11 happened, that is what really kind of lit the fire. And I went and talked to a recruiter, said, sign me up, tested into being an intelligence analyst, and worked for quite a few diverse units while I was in. I was in Navy intelligence for a while. I worked for a P3 squadron, did some carrier support work in San Diego. I was also in charge of Space and Warfare Command here in Albuquerque. And then I got activated 2009. I was sent out to Bagram, and then later loaned out to Team 6, where I was out in Sharana, Afghanistan on a FOB, and I worked with several different teams out there as their NCO.
Okay, very cool. And and it's interesting you bring that up, as it seems like even the FOBs that I was at, the Navy likes sending their intel analysts working out in those remote posts. All of a sudden,
Yes,
somebody, where did you come from? It's like, I've never seen your. It's like, yeah, I'm not here. Okay, nice to see you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always fun. So you have this diverse background in the military. How did you even get into yoga?
I think my first introduction to it was when I was in college, actually. I remember taking a physical education course where we had to pick a bunch of different kinds of exercise.
Right. And
so that was when I had decided to try, and I really liked it. And I kind of did it off and on. It wasn't really consistent per se. I kept doing it throughout the years. And then when I was in Afghanistan, I discovered that the team did it. Mm. And from other SEAL teams that I've talked to and other friends, not all of them do it, but it seems like 6 has a more in-depth training into, I think, a lot of the internal martial arts per se.
Sure.
And so I think that's kind of where yoga came to them, just like the NFL used to send their players to ballet classes.
Yeah.
It brings more focus, more balance for the kind of job that they have to do, especially navigating the geography in Afghanistan.
Sure. Right.
You need to have great balance. So I saw them doing it. I started working out with them every day, increasing my knowledge. I kept doing it when I when I came home, and I would do it with my kids occasionally. But it wasn't really until I kind of hit a wall about 2 years ago that I am really on the go a lot. I keep myself busy to keep out of my own head
Sure.
for my own disabilities. And I just hit a point where I was like, I'm not Superwoman. I can't do everything. I need to I need to
Right.
figure out a different path to
Mm.
accomplish all the things that I need to do. And that's when I seriously started taking a look at becoming a teacher. And it was really crazy because when I finally made the decision, I got online one night to look at schools, and it was really important for me to have a traditional school. I really wanted that traditional background, like an ashram, in addition to the
Mm.
physical part.
Mhm.
And I found the studio I wanted. It was Sana Yoga in Albuquerque. And I was like, okay, I sent him an email. The next morning, when I was on my way to work, I worked at the Federal Building. I just happened to glance over 2 blocks from the Federal Building, and there was Sana Yoga. I had
Oh,
driven by
wow.
it every day for 2 years and had never seen it. And so that kind of told me
Mm.
I was really on the right path. And
Right.
I had really amazing traditional teachers. I had a great training program that taught me a lot about the medical physical part of yoga and Eastern practices, as well as the physical. And I had thought about doing a nonprofit. So I went upstairs in the Federal Building to the SBA. Nobody was around. And finally, a gentleman walked out, and he asked me if he could help me. And I told him what I wanted to do. And he's like, so you're a vet and you want to teach yoga? I was like, yes. He's like, did you know the government wants to hire yoga teachers to teach vets? They want vets teaching other vets because we know how to speak to each other.
Right.
And I finally recognized him. I had met him a couple years earlier. He was a former secretary of the VA, John Garcia.
Oh,
And
wow.
so when we finally recognized each other, we kind of kept in contact, and he kind of has guided me along for this whole process. And along the way, I jumped into trauma yoga training for vets. I won a scholarship to Las Vegas last year
Very cool.
to specialize that. I'm still training in that. And just over research and conversations I've had with different
Mhm.
people that work at VA hospitals, different veterans, etc., I've been
Right.
able to come to the conclusion that we need to have a different public healthcare approach. And I'm in graduate school at Purdue right now for public healthcare. And I've learned that I really need to apply a soldier mindset to
Mm.
yoga in order for veterans to have interest in trying it.
Right. Right.
Once they find the benefits of it and find out that it's not easy, it's extremely hard. It takes a
Right.
lot of
Right.
strength
Yeah.
to do yoga, a lot of focus. The most elite warriors in the world do it. I think that they'll find once they feel those benefits that they're going to be more willing to explore
Right.
traditional yoga.
Now, let me ask you something, Heather, is why do you feel that need to change the mindset around it? Is it because that you're finding that the majority of the military mindset is that yoga is too frou-frou or too crunchy in a sense?
Yes, and that's where a lot of the education comes in. And it's
Sure.
hard to talk to a veteran, especially when you're looking at different generations of veterans.
Right.
Now, 9/11 generation might be a little bit more open, depending on who you're talking to, versus
Right.
say a Korean or Vietnam veteran.
Right.
May not be. They're pretty stuck in their ways. So I kind of looked at it as trying to educate them on the science of yoga, and
Mm.
trying to educate them also on the history of yoga. I mean, if you're looking, anybody that practices martial arts, which plenty of active duty and military do, there's an internal martial arts. If you have to pass a belt to get into the next one, you have to demonstrate a form in a slow motion in addition to sparring to get to that next belt level.
Right.
Well, that's kind of where yoga comes in. Kung Fu and yoga are still used in the Shaolin Temple today as a
Right.
joint training system. And those monks are probably some of the most elite fighters in the world because they embrace the yin and yang of that
Right.
energy power of bringing those two together. And so
Right.
I want to educate them on it. But first, have to get them in class. I
Right.
have to have that
Well,
hook to get them in.
well, let me rewind a little bit. And so we're talking about yoga and the soldier mindset, and so much of this, there's an aspect of healing with this. And I know that we've had other folks on talking about yoga and other ways of helping healing. You know, a lot of people do this to help with PTS, TBI. The list goes on and on. These traumas that not only probably were there to begin with, but now are exacerbated by whatever issue or, you know, situations they encountered while in combat, and bringing the stress. And are you finding that to be the case? And if so, have you used yoga maybe in a personal journey of healing?
I have, because it helps with the relationship that I have with myself. And I
Okay.
think sometimes the person that we're most scared of is ourself.
Mm.
We don't like to take a look at ourselves and see what's there
The
sometimes.
true self.
The
Yeah.
true self.
Yeah.
And when you dig too deep, when you meditate, you really have to sit there with yourself, and you have to enjoy your own company, and you have to embrace the thoughts that are coming into your head. And sometimes those thoughts are not always light. Sometimes they
Right.
are dark.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to understand, is we are light and dark. And our shadow is something that we need to embrace. It's what made us the person that we are today. It doesn't mean that that defines us or that that's our future path,
Right.
but we have to embrace that. And I think that's the hardest thing for people, in addition to just the stereotype that a guy might have to come to a yoga class, is really getting in touch with themselves. Because even being in a yoga pose, that's a moving meditation, and it triggers a lot, especially in trauma yoga,
Right.
which is hitting on those neural circuits in the nervous system that need to be repaired. um, Things are going to come up, they're going to get triggered. And a lot of the damage that also comes from a combat zone is that your memory processing changes. Your memories, when you come out of combat, have a lot more senses attached to it.
Right.
And so part of the breathing in yoga even can reset that, you know. And that's the thing that people need to understand. Yes, trauma changed your life. Yes, it changed your physical brain and rewired it. But guess what? You can rewire it. There are methods. There are multiple methods to do that. Yoga is one of those effective
Right.
methods that can help that.
Have you now you spent some time overseas as well, and did and if I could ask, you know, were there some personal challenges for you returning home, and did and you know, in that path of doing yoga, has it helped you? Is that one of the reasons you continue to do it today?
Yes. So kind of two sides of that is one, I have a degree in psychology, and something that was even hard for me, even to knowing everything that comes with psychology, is I felt guilty about having PTSD. I thought, well, why would I have PTSD? I was on the fob, like the team went out. I wasn't in a firefight, you know. I'm
Right.
physically, I'll have my fingers and toes. And my therapist said, well, how much is enough? Like, how much do you have to go through, really, you know? And why are you comparing yourself to this person? This
Right.
is your own personal journey, your body, your brain. And when I got more into studying PTSD and saw what the actual criteria was for diagnosing PTSD, it had said the difference between acute PTSD and chronic is if you've experienced one of these 6 other traumas, you're more likely, if you were in combat, to have chronic PTSD. And I looked at those. I had experienced all 6, some of them multiple times.
Right.
So then I was like, okay, so I get it. Like now I get it. And I went through therapy. I've been through all kinds of different therapy, cognitive behavioral, exposure therapy, medication. But the thing that really kind of completed that treatment is the addition of yoga.
Nice.
Now, does that mean that I'll never be off the medication or I'll never have to see a therapist? I
Mm.
don't know. Only time will tell.
Right.
But yoga is something that definitely has increased my ability, increased my skill set to those times that I'm feeling that cloud come over me, or those times that I'm triggered, I get lost in parking lots a lot.
Mm.
I get very disoriented at stores. It got so bad to the point that I would actually have to take a picture of where my car was.
Okay.
Those times I'm able to use the skill sets that I've used through meditation and yoga to step back, calm myself down, bring myself back and focus. And that has helped tremendously. And it just has helped me create new positive neural circuits in my brain. Just like you're learning an instrument, you play it and play it and play it until one day you just pick up the instrument and you can just play it without even thinking.
Mm.
That's kind of the same concept, that I think that you build these skill sets in, and pretty soon you make that body mind connection and they're ingrained in you like a muscle
Right.
memory.
Right. I know before we came live, we were chatting a little bit, and you had disclosed to me, which I thought was very fascinating. And of course, my background, I find a lot of that is but you were talking about being clairvoyant and knowing so since you were very young, and and the ability to have these extra perception, abilities outside of our six senses. Do you feel that any, your clairvoyance, did you have any premonitions or any visions of you talk about that, this yoga studio right across from the federal building that's always been there? Did you get any visions like that before, and anything like that?
Um, I think I just knew one day. My clairvoyance mostly comes from dreaming. I have something
Mm,
called synesthesia.
okay.
So my senses, I use a different part of my brain. I think, I don't know, it's a very low percentage of the population that has it. My senses are different than other people's perception of senses. And so I think that is one thing that kind of adds to my clairvoyant, that mostly comes in
Okay.
dreams and other experiences. But finding that yoga studio was there for so long, and I didn't realize it was a huge sign to me.
I'm,
And
could you share a little bit about that term? I've never heard of that before.
synesthesia is a neurological, well, they call it a neurological condition.
Hmm.
It's basically people that have it use a different part of their brain than other people. They haven't coined it as a sixth sense, technically,
Hmm.
on paper, but the research that's been done on it is looking more towards that's what it might be, that they actually might have a way to measure something like a sixth sense.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
for
So it's,
instance, when I look at numbers, all numbers have colors to me.
mm,
Every single number has a different color. That's the most common form. Other people may hear music and see colors.
very
It
cool.
just differs from person to person.
Okay. Very cool. Um, and that stuff is so fascinating. And if we learn how to leverage that, can be really an asset to each and every person, because I believe that we're all gifted in some way. That's just my personal belief. Um, so going forward so if you could with us, sharing about um, Project Phoenix and Outside the Wire, this new project that you're undertaking, right? This new journey that you're on. Could you share with us a little bit about that?
I'm still in development of this program, of the design. The very first class is, I had a friend send me the most current PRT requirements. And when I was looking through the dynamic and static exercises, I noticed 80% of them were yoga poses. They had just renamed them. So I'm combining something that they're already familiar with, basically doing kind of yoga intervals to get the heart rate up in the first part of the class. And then this particular class, I got your 6, we switch over to dry fire exercises. So if I were teaching this in a controlled setting, I would say, go grab your weapons, get back into formation. I start calling out shooting poses that I have found are very similar to yoga poses, and the breathing. And then I tell them to adjust their foot or their arm or their gaze. And that will eventually tweak them step by step into getting into a trauma yoga pose without them knowing.
Sure.
And then eventually, you know, when you're shooting, you're kind of going in and out, in and
Right.
out. That's the same thing with trauma yoga, is you're rocking into positions that are hitting in your psoas muscle in your hips. And I found all kinds of different ways that I can put in kind of a dry fire exercises, even in prone pose, to mimic yoga poses. And so I will take them through that a couple of different times. Then they put their weapons down, they come back and they do those exact same things without the weapon, so that they're having a different presence when they come back. And that I want them to also have a different presence with that gun. I want them to associate, and I know it's a very controversial topic for a lot of people, but with veterans dying at the rate that they are, I want to help change that mindset. I want to help change their feeling of being safe. I want them to feel safe with themselves. I want them to associate that gun with something positive and not something that's going to be negative
Right.
in their life.
Well, and you know, the thing is, I think, Heather, the people that would be very controversial for is people that don't understand it. If you take a veteran, every branch of the military, there's some type of weapons qualification. You know, there's weapons involved, right? So when you look at a veteran, that's something that is standard across the branches. I don't know about Space Force, but you know, maybe a lightsaber. I
Yeah.
don't know, but you know, but the thing is that there's weapons in all branches of the military. And so, you know, like you said, it's not about, it's something to, it's really just a medium. It is a vehicle to
Exactly.
get in the veteran stance saying, oh, it's weapons training. Or, hey, it's just like when I was on the range or whatever. Instead of, oh, hey, let's eat some granola and let's do the lotus pose, you know, or rising
Exactly.
sun or whatever it is, right? And
Mhm.
saying, they're not thinking about that. They're thinking whatever, you know, that here they have a training firearm in their hand and they're going through the poses. I think that's so awesome. Um, you know, it's going back to, you talked about it, is you mentioned about history, about the monks and other things, and so many other ancient how do I want to say, genres of warriors, right, have whether it's yoga or other poses, it's well known to um, to use the same poses to go through to not only increase their, in their minds, their lethality, but also their effectiveness and overall health and wellness, right? So we talk about uh, like Zen or like oh good Lord, now I'm not going to remember the name. It's Zen Archery. There's other types of
Right.
using different types of weaponry, but it's really just a platform. They're still doing the same thing. You can take it out of your hands and do the same. But I just love what you're doing with that, and making the cognizant connection between veteran, and sometimes we need something. Sometimes we need a, you know, whether it's, you know, we need to hold something, whatever that is,
Right.
to get us in the mind frame, or you know, that frame of mind. um so you said that you're still in development, but have you done any like beta testing in a sense? Have you done some dry walk, crawl, run type testing with it? Have you?
That's the next step. I'm still in firearms training.
Okay.
I'm training with a local company in Albuquerque, doing personal lessons. I'm going back to Virginia Beach to train with some retired SEALs that have a company back there, to go
Nice.
through a couple days of um, combat training. Basically, I kind of want a little bit of taste of combat training that I had 10 years ago, to kind of get back in that mindset.
Right.
And then I would really like to do focus groups, at least with each branch. I know for sure that I want to do one in Pendleton. I have friends that are active duty Marines out there. Marine officers, and then I also have Navy friends that are out there. So that's kind of the first place I want to go test it out. So I
Nice.
figure if I can pass the smell test with Marines, I'm good.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
I really want their feedback, and I want to see what they think about it, because there
Right.
may be some things that I need to change or can do better.
Sure. Sure. Well, and it's always evolving, right?
Mhm.
And as you
Yes.
learn more and grow, it's just going to grow with you. I just think it's so cool. What are some other, so if we shift gears a little bit and talking about, what are some benefits, if we could talk about those of doing yoga, or benefits maybe that you have found personally from doing yoga? I know you were saying that you're more focused, there's a clarity of mind, but if you could share with us maybe just a few benefits of yoga and
I
doing
think the biggest one for guys that like to hit the gym is, I'll mention this to other male vets, and they'll be like, "Oh, I think that's great that you're doing that, but I have other ways.
yoga.
I go to the gym and I lift and stuff, and that's all good. But the poses in yoga are able to activate things in your nervous system that regular exercise cannot.
Right.
That's one reason it's so effective. It's because you're putting yourself in very weird poses. And when it was first created, it was kind of created as the first health and fitness regime, if you will. It was created with something called the Ayurvedic Diet. That's a way to eat for your body type, how much sleep you're supposed to get, when you
Right.
should go to bed, when you should wake up, etc. That was to help get rid of toxins in your body. And then yoga was brought in to get the remaining toxins out, because when you're in a lot of positions, you're hitting in your core and you're twisting. So it has a lot to do with activating your digestive system. So that's another benefit, is digestive system. It also, the breathing that you do in yoga has great benefits for your brain. It triggers the vagus nerve, which basically tells your brain to quiet down, to relax. It increases neurotransmitter activity to do that. And while regular exercise has many benefits, yoga just has different benefits for bringing more peace, more balance, I think, in your life.
Sure.
And so that you're just more even keel. And that's what I've really found, and they kind of call it the yoga high, is sometimes when you have just had an amazing class and you've really stretched deep into poses that you wouldn't in a normal exercise, you just come out and you feel like you're glowing. You feel like the sky is bluer and it's just a more beautiful day and the birds are singing, and it's this
Sure.
amazing feeling that you get that I have never experienced from any other form of exercise.
I love how you talked about moving the toxins, because that was going to be one of the things that I was going to ask you about, because moving a lot of the excess toxins, we talk about all the other things, but a lot of times it's hard to get at those toxins, to get the body to move it right. And
Mhm.
so sometimes by doing something physical, in a way, I get it, running, lifting, but that's only exercising certain parts. And yoga is one of the few exercises out there that incorporates or engages all parts of the body, right?
Correct. Mind and body. And that's the big difference
Right.
between that and regular
Right.
exercise.
Well, and I think it would be fair to add to the mind, body, and spirit. So
Correct.
the aspect of
And I
that
had, and actually the Secretary of VA that I was working with had a really beautiful way of expressing PTSD, and he calls it post-traumatic spirit disorder.
mm,
And I really like that term much better.
right. It's not really a disorder. Otherwise, it kind of sounds like you're broken, right?
Right.
So,
And we are
uh,
not broken. I want to
right,
put that
right,
out there. We are
absolutely.
not
Well,
broken.
then we're trying to change that narrative as well. And how cool to have. And you were talking about the Secretary of the VA. What better mentor to have in that aspect than the secretary or the former secretary himself?
Mhm.
I mean, just so cool that you happen to quote unquote bump into him, right?
Exactly.
It's like
Years later.
right.
And
So,
I thought to myself that if when he remembered who I was, I actually kind of gave him a hard time in a public talk that he had. I challenged him on something. And I was
so
like, oh, I don't know if he's going to want to remember me.
oh,
Turned out to be
funny.
good.
Oh, good. Heather, if folks want to check out what you're doing, or just check out your website or whatever, how can they do that?
My website went live, I think it was last week. So
Oh,
it's
nice.
www.twistyoga.com.
Sweet. And are you now did you say that are you opening a studio, or is that in the
I
future?
am not going to open brick and mortar. I am strictly contracts right now.
Okay.
And then eventually I will be doing digital content
Oh,
with
sure.
this Outside the Wire series.
Okay, very cool. Well, my guest today, Heather Clark, speaking about twist yoga and outside the wire, just so many nuances to what you're doing. I'm excited to see what develops for you, and we're super excited. And again, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you for your service, and thank you, more importantly, what you continue to do, Heather, and not only for the veteran community, but everybody as well. And I want to ask a couple last questions. One, because people are probably thinking, is this series just for veterans or military?
So the first one, definitely, because it's exposure therapy.
Okay.
The other ones primarily are for veterans, but a civilian could take them and still get, I think, the same benefits.
Sure.
They may not understand the titles
Sure.
and the lingo and stuff, but yeah, everybody can benefit from it. And a lot of people go to those boot camp fitness classes and because they want to be a part of that. They want to be a part
Sure.
of what we are. And
Sure.
I totally applaud them for that and say, come on in.
Awesome. My second question is, and it's completely off the track, but who is at least one person that has inspired you in doing what you do?
I think my grandfather, first and foremost, really, I want to make him proud. He has passed for probably 13 years now. He was the one person in my life, he and my grandmother, that I really wanted to make proud. And I really want to make other veterans proud so that they can do the things that they have a passion for. And I've been able to network with amazing veterans in the last couple of months. I've learned so much, and I've been inspired by the work that they've done. Recently, I met Keith Carraway and David Johnson, and they are just absolutely amazing individuals. They're very inspiring to me to up my game and to do great things like they are doing. Jason Piccolo, also, I recently met him and was on a social show last week.
Yeah.
Also a great person to look up to. And of course, you, Dean, thank you for your service too.
You.
And we're so happy that you're here doing great things as well.
Well, thank you. And, and I could safely say that, with your, making your grandfather proud and the veteran community proud, I know that you're doing that with the work that you're doing. So keep up the good fight, keep doing what you're doing. And it was such an honor to not only meet you, but, or virtually anyways, but have a chat with you and let you share the great work that you're doing with everybody out there. And we look forward to keeping tabs on what you got going on and what comes up here in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, Heather.